I am Dr. Leah Leach. Welcome to the Wonder Woman Academy. I am the headmistress and the founder of Gal's Guide. Today's class, we are going to be talking about breaking the chains. We're going to be talking about this in a metaphoric or mythological way. I know there are people who physically break chains. They're, strong men, strong women. That's not what we're teaching today. So if you were hoping to see how to break some metal, I don't have the skill set for that. Ironically, I have friends who do. So just, I'll get you in contact with the actual strong people that break metal things for a living. Not me. We have talked in these classes, in the Wonder Woman classes already, about how there is a lot of bondage in Wonder Woman. The creator, William Marsden, also seemed to have a thing for dominance and submission. I'm going to put a whole pin in the whole BDSM dominance and submission thing, because honestly, I don't know that much about it. And I don't want to pass any judgment because different strokes, different folks, that's probably really the wrong turn of phrase for what I'm talking about. But what we are going to talk about today is the importance of symbolism and action in breaking the chains that bind us. We're going to talk about how to actually change our ways to break a cycle. We're going to talk about how, when we change, how that affects other people. And we're going to talk about how to deal with a toxic relationship, because it's a whole other category. So those are the things that we are going to kind of boil down when we are talking about breaking the chains today. So let's start with symbolism, okay, and why the symbolism is important. So it is said by Wonder Woman scholars, and bless them, because I think they're really just trying to kind of make sense of it or just add another dynamic to the Wonder Woman character. But the scholars say that Wonder Woman is shown being bound in chains a lot to have this great moment of her breaking free of the chains in a visual metaphor. That idea and that powerful image to cement in a person's head of breaking free of the chains that bind. So physical chains, they are heavy, they drag you down, they cause your body to slump, they are painful, they are humiliating, and they are seemingly unbreakable. Now, seemingly, because Wonder Woman is not the only one in comic books who seems to break out of chains in a regular fashion. We also see it in other films and TV shows. We see it from runaway prisoners, like the Defiant Ones. We see it to African slaves in the movie Amistad. Breaking the chains can mean freedom from oppression. Breaking the chains can also be symbolism for a new start, a new life, a new beginning. There are also those scenes in Western films where a Jesse James type is escaping from jail and then breaking their chains with a rock. Or maybe even in mob films. I mean, generally those are more handcuffs and stuff like that where they're breaking free. So sometimes you have a bad dude breaking free and you may or may not be rooting for them to be back in chains again. But one thing is for sure, very few people want to be in chains. So the symbology of breaking free of them or being released from something that binds you is very powerful. If you want to dig a little bit deeper into the symbolism, you can even think of links in a chain being identical. And being another link in the chain is being a copy of everyone else, of everything else. So breaking open, breaking free showcases your uniqueness of stopping a pattern, of breaking free from the rest of the identicalness. So that's another way to think. So chain symbolism can be individualism, it can be freedom, it can be liberation, it can be stopping a pattern. So there's lots of different symbolism that you can put into breaking a chain. Another way to think of it is this wonderful myth, and this comes into the book that I'm recommending for today. And I don't try to recommend a book every single day, but I mean, I'm surrounded by them. So a lot of times, you know, it's kind of like, oh, wait, I can pull from this great book and then I can tell people about it. So this book is called The Queen's Cloak. It is a myth for midlife, and this is my personal copy. I'm going to buy one for the library, so it'll be in the Lending Library collection. When I actually went to grab this, I'm like going, oh wait, the library doesn't have that one. Guess what I'm buying today? So The Queen's Cloak. This is a mythology for midlife, and it's for women. So I could probably do a whole class on The Queen's Cloak. You know, probably when we do Wonder Woman again in the future, I might have a class specifically for the Queen's Cloak. But what it is about a queen who finds her mother's cloak, and she weaves herself a magic cloak, and it is filled with symbolism of how to heal and how to find purpose in midlife. And I have one little section I was going to read. Look, I have a fabric bookmark that Gal's Guide selling. Oh, is that just a harmless plug or what? They're so cute, these little, sorry, I'm a terrible salesperson. I really, really am. However, so from the book, it's when the queen is looking in the attic, she finds her mother's cloak in a box, and there's a note attached to this cloak, and it says, "My dearest daughter, this is a cloak I have wove myself. Take what you need and give the rest to your sister. A wise woman will be able to tell you about its magic. This is my greatest legacy. I leave it to you with my love." So she takes out this cloak, and it's shimmering and it's gorgeous, and there's like these metallic threads that are in it. But when she puts on her mother's cloak, the colors fade and it doesn't fit. It's too short. The pattern even disappears when she puts it on. So she goes to a wise woman who says that she needs to make her own cloak, beginning with actually making the yarn. To make her own cloak, to take elements of her mother's cloak, and to also take elements from her family, of things that she has made from her family. And she weaves these different things together to make her own cloak, to represent herself, her family, and to heal her soul. And it's a very beautiful myth, and it's very short. I will tell you this whole book. The myth itself is only 24 pages. The rest of it is analysis and how she wrote it. So it would be a great thing to borrow from the library because you can read it really quick. I mean, hey, I could probably read it an entire class and then we could discuss. But it's an interesting way of thinking of another symbology of a chain. The cloak, you know what I mean? Her mother's nest not fitting her, trying to be defined by her mother, and so on and so forth. It's binding, it's conforming. It's not until you break free of that or you reinvent, which is what in the Queen's Cloak metaphor it is about reinvention. It's a very powerful tool for empowerment. So let's get into how to break the cycle. I like tangible things to be able to give to people. I read a lot of self-help books. I watch a lot of TED Talks, and it's like, this stuff is neat. These are great phrases that I've seen on t-shirts and bumper stickers, but it doesn't really like give me a tangible thing to do. So I always like to try to do that. So let's figure out how to change our ways that we want to break the cycle of, to free ourselves from the chains that bind and redesign a cloak that actually fits us. Now, the first step of any problem is identifying what the problem is, right? And sometimes that is difficult. Identifying it can be very hard. sometimes at the start, it's very, very vague. Like, I feel like I need to limit time with my parents. You know what I mean? Like, that might be the vagueness of the start of identifying the problem. It's the start of knowing at least, okay, so there seems to be a problem with the parents. So identify the cycle that you want to break and take the time to figure out what that is. The second part of the second step I want to give you is to go get help for yourself. I do recommend therapy. I am one of those people. I know that a good therapist is very, very hard to come by. Talking it out with somebody who is not emotionally involved in your ness is really helpful and very productive. Therapy is not selfish. It is not weak. It is a place where you can release your emotional baggage onto a person who is trained to help you through it. That is their job. That is what they are offering as a gift to humanity. But books, I'm surrounded by them. Books are a wonderful therapy. You don't have the back and forth like you would with a therapist, but you do have guidance. You do have exercises to do. You do have information that you can go back to and absorb in different ways, and you know what I mean, and double check. You also don't have somebody to check on you while you are doing this hard work of processing what cycles you want to break. So it is important to tell a partner, to tell a friend, to know those hotline numbers when you are working on past trauma to try to break these chains, if you are working on this with books and kind of by yourself. Another way is journaling. I am a big fan of journaling. I know not everybody is, but journaling is a way of slowing your brain down to convert that emotion and thought into physical action of writing something down. It slows you down. It also can be banging out on a keyboard, you know what I mean? Just using that physical activity to bang out on a keyboard or scribbling on a piece of paper. That physical activity helps deplete energy to get it out in a physical form. It also channels your brain into tangible pieces, things you can work on, things you can work on later, things you can come back to with fresh eyes and see. You can slow down and work on different aspects of the problem. You can also look at the big picture of it. So by writing it down, you can start to separate it. I like to journal because I like to see how far that I have come on a certain topic and how much I'm avoiding a certain topic. My particular trauma seems to be cyclical. I see patterns in it. And sometimes my anger or my grief or forgiveness or whatever is either making a problem worse, or sometimes it's making it a little bit better, but not in the right direction. So being able to kind of like journal stuff out, not so much like a diary, like I did this and then they did this, or I'm working on it, but just, you know, like brain dump, like, all right, these are all the things that are in my head. I'm going to start writing these down. So I like to see how far I've come or how far I still have to do. It also dissipates my energy. I have lots of it. And it helps clarify my thoughts, you know, of what they are. If you don't like to write, I recommend meditation, because you can use the journaling idea as meditation time instead. Find a quiet place with a door. It's very hard to concentrate if you think somebody's always going to be like, you know, standing in the doorway or right there, you know, so make sure there's a door. I mean, put a cowbell next to it so when the door opens, you know what I mean? Like, do what you need to do. But that way your mind can be like, all right, I know that, you know, I have this time to myself, which also is another problem of finding that time to yourself. But find a quiet place with a door and work out the problem in your mind. There are many classes and many books on meditation. What works for me in particular is sound and smell. I put music in meditation. I also burn incense. So the combination of burning incense, it's, you know, it's almost like a ritual, and music. The different music is to start the mood that I'm currently in. I try to match the music of the mood that I'm in, and then I try to move from that. I also have different playlists. just because I've done this over time. You know, I do actually have one playlist that's called Fuck That Guy. So when I'm really, really mad and I need to meditate and work out some stuff, I have a playlist that starts very, very angry and then gets calmer. But you know what I mean? Like, it's like, okay, I need my songs. And I'm going to channel it out through these artists because they found the right words for this moment. And if one song doesn't work that particular day, bam, 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 bam. That might be meditation and incense with music might be too much. It might be more of the stillness of the mind. That is fine too. Meditation is extremely, extremely personal. But music. Music does soothe the savage beast. It does help. So for me, music is that form of meditation. And the way that I discovered it is my grandfather died unexpectedly. And I was in California and he passed away in Minnesota. And I felt so far away from him and from the family, and I couldn't cry though. It was really weird. Like I felt like this disconnect and I couldn't mourn, but yet I felt like I really needed to. And so what I did is I put on a music concert in my living room just for a party of one. And I just started playing a song. And I'm like, all right, I feel like I need to listen to this song. And then I let that song led to another one, led to another one, and led to another one. Until I don't know how many hours I was into this, I feel like listening to this song, and this was all in CDs, by the way, because, you know, CDs were a thing once, when we owned material. But anyway, eventually I got to the song No Woman, No Cry by Bob Marley. And I just sobbed and sobbed and replayed and replayed. I can't tell you why that song, my grandfather is not Jamaican. He's not a Rastafari. You know what I mean? Like there was no reason for that song. I want to say because it was the No Woman, No Cry, and it was the fact that I couldn't cry. It was maybe that just kind of like sparked it, you know what I mean? Sort of thing. But that song in that moment just broke through. And that's what helped me grieve. That's what helped me get to the where I knew I needed to be. So yeah, so I find music very helpful. So I wanted to throw that out there. So the third step in oh my gosh, wait, where am I? There we go. In identifying how to break the cycle, there it is getting good boundaries. Boundaries, man, boundaries are hard. Boundaries are the limits that you set that define what kind of behavior is acceptable or unacceptable in your life. They are extremely personal. They are also very they're hard to define, but that you know it when you know it. It's kind of like getting a tattoo. You know, it's something that's going to be on your body forever, and it's like, oh my gosh, that's a lot of decision. But then once you're like, yeah, no, I want that on my body forever. Like it's that that's a boundary. That's this is the way that I'm going to put out into the world of how to treat me. I call them hills you are willing to die on. Those are the boundaries. I don't die on every hill. There are other people who fight for other things that are far more qualified than I am on those. And it's like, please go, you know what I mean? Save the world in that way. That's not my hill that I'm going to die on. One of them for me, which is a basic example of what I can give of one of my boundaries, is I don't put up with racism or anti-Semitism around me at all. Like I really don't put up with it. And this is what I say to people because I've got that very sweet little face, you know, it's like, how could she ever be mean to anybody? So you are more than welcome to steal this because it's what works for me. It just kind of happened in the moment and I found myself repeating it. It's for person-to-person encounters, and it's for a person that you know relatively well. This is not a, hey, I just met you kind of retort. This is kind of like, you know, a best friend, somebody you've known for a while, a family member. So let's say your BFF says a derogatory remark. And I would say, look, I know you've heard this sort of thing by others, but I know you, and I know that you are better than this. And I care for you. So please, if you care for me, don't use that kind of talk around me. And that's how I use it. I know that's a lot of words, but this is for a person that I care about. I'm not one of those, you know what I mean? Hey, shut up. You know, I'm not a rude and spout out at the mouth kind of quick twitted, but when it's a friend of mine, I care very much about people pleasing. But at the same time, I do not put up with racism and anti-Semitism. So even when it's a joke where it's just like, hey, I'm sure you heard that joke at work and thought it was really funny then, but I love you and I think you're better than that. So don't use it around me. I don't care what you do in your normal life, just not around me. Because that's caring for one another. That's that boundary. I would also say that I don't put up with misogyny. But I run a women's history museum, so it's kind of like, you know, it's the energy that's all around me. Like if you know the thing that I do, then if you're bringing up misogyny, it's either you are trying instinctively to see what reaction you're going to get from me. And if you do, I'm going to see right through it and be like, you're getting no reaction. Or it's really fun when then it's like, oh, you don't know what I do. And then I explain to them what I do, and I have stats. Oh, that's the thing that's irritating. Another good way of a good boundary is no meaning no. And I think we talked about this, and I can't remember if it was after in a discussion or if it was in one of the classes. But my husband and I came to the realization that tickle fights. So when you have little tiny kids and you're tickle, 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 you know, and they're like, no, and you keep tickle, 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 tickle. We decided no means no. And we're going to show that when it's the playful tickle fight and they say no, that we stop. And we're almost like, we're overly exaggerated about it with our hands up. You know what I mean? Like, no, okay. You know what I mean? We're making a point that it's a way to show our daughters that no means no. And so that if we stop, other people in their life, when they say no, should stop as well. So that's one way of a boundary establishing. So safety is also a very good boundary. If a person or a child is not safe around another person or environment, that is a boundary. Not safe. Keep your people safe. So the next one, if it gets a little bit worse, is get away. Seriously, get away. Sometimes a boundary isn't enough. It's just the way it is, and it absolutely sucks. Sometimes to break the cycle and free yourself, you have to get out of the city, you have to get out of the state, you have to get out of the country. I mean, all countries are kind of weird right now, but ours is definitely weird. But there are those who might see it as running away. For me, I see it as a new start, as a reinvention. I feel like I've done a circle tour of moving around this country. I feel like I'm a variation of a different person in each place that I lived in. I lived on both coasts and in the South and in the Midwest, and I feel like I'm the same person. I'm just a variance on a theme. I can tell you for some reason I was really artistic and really crafty when I was in the South. No reason for it, but you know, different variants on a theme. So reinvention, your environment and mostly your distance from your triggers are very helpful to give you the time and space that you need to identify the problem, to work on the problem, but how to actually go into action to break that cycle. So reinvention. You can reinvent yourself and break the chains wherever you are. You do not have to move away unless you are in danger or you need the mental restart. So I will give you a glorious example of a reinvention, and it's my reinvention story, if you haven't heard my reinvention story. So I am Dr. Leah Leach. And I had a lot of writing failures. I had hundreds of rejection letters of trying to write stories and books and things like that. And I had just had it, and I wanted to be a filmmaker, but I wasn't doing that. And I wanted to publish books, but I wasn't doing that. And so I was reading The Power of Myth by Joseph Campbell. And he talked about a tradition in India when they want to reinvent themselves. They change their job, they change the way they dress, and they change their name, and they just start over. And I'm like, let me try it. For me, let me just try it. So I took on the stage name Kate Chaplin. And so that is where I made my filmmaking career. I started changing the way that I dressed. I changed my name as a DBA. I didn't legally change my name because I still wanted to know who I was. But the name change was for me because Kate Chaplin didn't have any failures. Kate Chaplin only had a fresh new start to reinvent. And I reinvented myself while I was still living in a town. So, you know, it wasn't like I moved into a town. It's like, bam, new person. No, I still had to go through the, you know, people calling me, are you Leah? Are you Kate? And now it's lovely because I still get that. Are you Leah? Are you Kate? And it's like, I'm whichever one. Same. But that starting over, that was for me. And the Kate and the Chaplin, the Kate came from Katharine Hepburn and the Chaplin came from Charlie Chaplin. And these were my two film mentors that I knew that I would never live up to, but I would always try. And so that gave me something to fight for. They gave me something to reinvent myself, to find myself within that high bar. And it was just for me. And it really, really worked, reinventing. So another way of saying reinvention is to blaze a new trail. So it's surrounding yourself by thousands of inspirations, like in this library. I am surrounded by women who blaze trails, who found a new path. Just taking one action and turning it into another action and turning it into another action. And before you know it, you're doing the thing and you're getting confidence in that ability because you've been doing that thing. So that is reinvention. So those are the different ways of how to break a cycle. Now let's talk about how that affects other people. Because when you change, when you are trying to better yourself, when you are stopping a pattern, or when you are saying no, it affects other people. And you're gonna get kind of one of three reactions. There are shades of gray, but generally they will fall into one of these three categories. Indifference, don't care, cool, neat, meh, awesome, wow. Support, oh my gosh, I'm so happy for you. That's wonderful, fantastic. Do you need anything? Awesome, you rock, girl, support, right? And then what I call negative emotion soup. This is jealousy, this is confusion, this is anger, spite, this is all of it kind of put into a gumbo of negative emotion soup. It's lovely. Most people will be indifferent about it. When I changed my name, people are like, all right, cool. I mean, it helped probably that like Puff Daddy, P. Diddy, Sean Combs had changed his name like 7 times before I did. So, I mean, like, people were like, whatever, Puff Daddy. I'm like, cool. So we've got a precedent then. Just remember that we are working on our own problems and other people are working on their own problems. So if you are doing a reinvention or a boundary, they're like, cool, man, I got my own stuff that I'm dealing with. So generally, they're not super gonna care. But support, those that support you, you wanna hold on to those friends. Those are the ones that are just like, okay, all right, gotcha, my squad, my tribe. Some say that, you know, some will say, woohoo, good job. And really they're like, I can't wait until she fails. Like, you know what I mean? So, so sometimes that thumbs up is really, let me put it this way, they have a recipe for the negative emotion soup. All right, they're just not sure if they're ready to serve it to you yet. Okay, so that happens. It is. So the negative emotion soup, like I said, it's a gumbo. It's all mixed together. It's really hard to separate. You don't know what's carrots and corn. You don't really know what's deflected childhood trauma in the soup. I mean, it's a lot of stuff that's all in one. Also, there's some people who just can't let a sister do better for herself for whatever reason. Just like, no, yeah. But know this, that is on them. That is not about you. You keep doing your thing. When you work on your issues, you decide on a boundary, you present that boundary, and the people that love and care for you, they may be a little, you know, a little deflective. They maybe need a little time to process, to kind of to separate themselves from what you are talking about. But if they love you, they understand, and they understand that you are trying to do better, and that you are trying to break a chain, you are trying to blaze a new trail, and you are trying to do this for the betterment of yourself and the people around you. But there are some that when they are presented with a boundary, with a new rule to face, that they will flip tables. They will just have a fit for the sake of having a fit, and they're gonna punish you with a new rule. Because that's fair. Because if you don't abide by their new rule, then they don't have to abide by your new rule. So that's fun. Basically, in a nutshell, this is narcissism. And narcissism is a whole thing. A very small minority of the population actually have narcissism, but we have a very clear case and a very high position in our country that has some telltale signs of narcissism, and so it's been spreading unchecked lately. A little bit, yeah. So lastly, I gotta go into the breaking the chains of a toxic relationship, okay? Because these toxic relationships are ones where moving away might necessarily work, did not work, sorry, moving away did not work, boundaries don't work, your health or your safety is at risk for you or your kids. That is toxic relationships. That is the worst of the worst, okay? If you can, go no contact. And it sucks. It really, really sucks. But if you can, go no contact. No text, no email, just Taylor Swift has a beautiful song, I Forgot That You Existed. It's on my fuck him playlist. I forgot that you existed. Right. So that really does help to a certain extent, especially while you're working on your stuff. Limit contact if you have to, if it's just through text. You know what I mean? That's one way to do it. Always keep things with toxic people on neutral ground. Not your home, not their home. Quiet, public places, neutral ground as much as possible. They probably will try to make a scene somewhere, so yeah. Another one is gray rock. I don't know if anybody's heard of the gray rock method. When I heard about it, it actually broke my heart. Oh my gosh, gray rock method. It's one of the saddest things that I personally had to do, and I've had to do it actually. I have what's they call it a perfectly matched face. Sometimes people call it a perfectly aligned face. Malcolm Gladwell is one of the big components of the perfectly matched face. And what that means is when I'm happy, it's on my face. When I'm angry, it's on my face. Like, you get the emotion that I'm feeling through the expression of my face. And I am generally happy like 80% of the time. The other time I'm sleeping or I'm reading. I'm reading some kind of misogyny in like a Victorian English book. So I'm pissed off, you know what I mean? But generally I am a happy gal. So if I have to go gray rock and have no emotion on my face, indifference, it's really draining for me to do that, to hold back full expression. You know what I mean? Of just, I am what I am. Here's the billboard that is my face. But this energy of a perfectly matched face is a magnet sometimes to people. Sometimes they are trying to destroy that energy. They see happiness in the world and they're like, that can't exist. I must destroy this happiness. Or they're trying to just get their way, you know what I mean, to manipulate me. It's hard, but if you react like Ben Stein, if you remember Bueller, if you can do a Ben Stein, that is gray rock. A narcissist, a highly toxic person, if you are gray rock and Ben Stein and emotionless, will have nothing to do with you because they're not getting a reaction off of you. Oh, and I'm not a good poker player. No, I don't play. Can't play. This, I know my strengths and my weaknesses. But when a narcissist or a toxic person can't get a reaction off of you because you've gone gray rock, they're looking for positive or negative. They're looking for any reaction. They're looking for justification that they matter, that they can get a reaction out of you. So if you go gray rock, they move on. There's plenty of people that they're going to get other reactions on. Okay. That's just what it is, which sucks. So now why do all of this? Why break the chains? Okay. Because I mean, it's not easy. If it was easy, we'd be doing it every day. But it's how we evolve as human beings. It's how the next generation is better than the one before it. How they have a little bit more tools in their toolbox. They have a foundation that's a little bit higher than what we had to be able to get a better view. To quote Maya Angelou, when you know better, you do better. And we, you know, as we know better, we need to also teach other people, well, this worked for me. It might work for you. So if you have lived through traumatic experiences, first of all, I feel for you, I empathize for you, and you can turn that trauma into hope. You can be a shining example of how to reinvent yourself, of how to process, and how to break that chain. You can reinvent yourself for the next generation. You can encourage that little girl who's always watching, because we always talk about, you know, pretend like there's a little girl that's watching you, because there is. You can encourage that little girl who's always watching you to break free of any chains that might try to hold her down. And whoever saves one life saves the world entire. And I mean, it's from Schindler's List, but it's also from some stuff. So why not save your own life and break free of those chains? So save your life, save the world entire. So yes. Dun, 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 dun. Yes. So that is breaking the chains. That is what I have for you. I hope that you have enjoyed this, that it has given you some tools in your toolbox. You can unmute microphones and we can discuss what has worked for you, thoughts, feelings, who wants to play poker with me?